All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are currently going to go ahead and install the fork here. So we've got, as we see, the S-Works Tarmac SL7, which looks terrific. All right, so as you can see, we've got the bike here ready to rock and roll. I've got a fork that's sitting upside down in the frame. And the goal today here on day one of the S-Works Tarmac SL7 build is to get that inside there and hopefully cut it to the right spec. So I've got already the SL7 comp ready to rock and roll beside me here, so I actually have a good map of what I need to do. But what we're going to kind of do here, just depending as well, because this whole piece goes together with the brake lines that go internally in the head tube. So I don't know how much or how permanent I'm going to make this right off the hop, but I will go ahead and start putting it together and hopefully get a pre-cut done on the fork itself. So let's get started. I'm going to go and actually take a look at the SL7 Tarmac comp and get an idea of what order I want to do this stuff in here and if I need to start running brake lines or not. So let's take a look. I'll show you the head tube here just to kind of get some perspective on what we're working with as well. So this is what the head tube looks like here at the top. As you can see inside the frame, we've got the bearing race, or the seat. I guess it would be the seat, I think is what you call it. The bearings sit inside this. Now this is built into the frame. I don't have to mess around with this. So some headsets you actually have to press this portion, which would be the headset cup, into the head tube. We're not having to do that in this case, which is terrific, but a bearing will sit here. So we're gonna get some, we'll read the manual, but I'm assuming we're gonna put some grease in here, bearing, and then some adapters and whatnot to get started. So the first thing we're gonna do is kind of figure out our stack height to cut the fork, and we're gonna measure that and kind of walk you through that. All right guys, so I wanted to go through each part here just because this is a very specific video itself. So I figured I'd kind of open each bag, show the parts and pieces and how it kind of works. So let's go in, crack this open. There's only so much you can see from looking at it from above. So let's take a look here at all these little pieces and kind of go through what they do. And let's open all this up here, and I apologize if this isn't focusing. I'm not looking at the camera right now. Okay, so here we go. So stem, that should look familiar to you guys. Nothing too crazy. This guy's 110 mil length, which is center to center. We've got underneath here, there's going to be some accessories that you can route your brake lines to a little attachment that bolts into here. As well in the stem face, you can see that there's a little hole here. That's for the out front mount for your Garmin. Now the difference between this stem and a standard Tarmac SL7 stem, this one says S-Works on it, and it has titanium bolts. That's it. So save yourself the cash. You can buy a regular stem and maybe just put some titanium bolts on it. It looks cool. It says S-Works. Not a big deal. From there, this is going to act as our star nut, which is basically an expansion plug. So when we drop this guy into the steer tube, as it tightens down, this guy on the top here will actually spread and expand. And with that screw there, that will hold your headset pressure in place. Pretty simple. As for the plastic spacers and adapters, we can see a couple things here. Hopefully you can see on the sides of these things, these actually pop apart, which means that you can open and close your brake lines by sliding them in and out. So they're not, you don't have to take these off every time you need to adjust the stem, which is terrific. You can just crack them open and take the brake lines out. These are your spacers. They should stack on top of each other, I would imagine. No, let's see here. So no, these ones are going to go on, I believe, the top. I'm guessing that's going to probably be on the top of the frame to make that arrow look. And then these, I would imagine, would go on top of them, and they would probably stack together like so. This guy, ooh, that looks like we're going to route some cables through there. I would imagine. Wondering which one of these. We'll figure this all out as we go. This would cover your top cap bolt. So that'll clip on top, I'm guessing right here. Yep. Probably slide down and cover that, and cover the bolt when it's all done. Now I am missing the top cap bolt and top cap, which is fine. These bearings are going to sit in the frame. And then you can see here, a line slot. Okay. So that's just a standard alignment. Okay, cool. A line slot. I'm guessing that goes right that way. And then sits on top of the bearing. That's probably on top of the head tube itself, and your cables are going to go down through that, and that's to prevent any wear onto your steer tube, I'm guessing. Like I said, I'm going to read through the whole manual on how to do this correctly so I don't fudge anything up, but that is kind of a quick overview of what's in the bag. I apologize if that's a little long-winded, but I'm sure there's people that wanted to have a quick look. All right, guys, so I ended up kind of doing a quick put together here to see what's going on. So the way it all kind of works, I can show you here. We've got a bearing in the bottom, a bearing in the top, and just spacers that clip together as we kind of put it together. So as we can see here, we've got that little ring I was talking about. That's where your cables are going to go down and into the fork. That's not a big deal. Remember, we're just dry fitting this to cut. So we've got that, which is sitting on top of the bearing. What I can do is just show that. So there's the bearing in the frame. This goes down on top of it. There we go. There's our guide in place for the cables. You'll see on the back here, there's two little holes. That's for this top guide to actually has little tabs that sit down into it. So make sure mine isn't backwards like I was just showing. So you'll see, there we go. And what's going to happen is you're going to line that up straight with the frame. Hopefully I can see that, but that's going to line up straight so that it sits flush like that. And then from there we've got 3 of the big spacers that go onto the steer tube. So those will go down, and once again they all kind of clip together. So when you turn one, it should turn the whole stack like this. So 3 big, 1 small, once again clips in. And then this guy here is for your cables to actually run out of, so you want this pointed up. And then from here we're going to have our stem that sits on top of that like this, and you can kind of see how it actually integrates a little bit there. Because what will end up happening, and I'll move this up here. What will end up happening here is your cables will run along, so it's got a nice little aerodynamic setup there that goes underneath. So from here, this is the total stack height of like a fully assembled setup. So we're going to want to cut a little bit below this line here so that we can drop our star nut expansion plug in, as I don't believe there's anything else that we're missing, but I will double check, triple check, quadruple check, because I imagine this fork's a few $100. So yeah, I actually dig one of the things really so far is that everything kind of turns together, which is nice. It clips well together, and it's just easy. So looks good. So let's mark this a little bit below that, and I'm going to cross-reference this with my other bike as well, just to ensure that it's all good. And then we'll get this expansion plug put in. Now I just wanted to show for reference here, this is a Tarmac SL7 comp, and I wanted to kind of show you the depth of the expansion plug that's put in. So I just wanted to show you here, as we can see, the depth of the expansion plug in comparison to the top cap, because remember, the top cap needs to push this down, and it needs to have a gap on top of the stem here. So this guy's cut down just a little bit lower than the stem here. So let's go ahead and kind of mimic that on the S-Works. So I'm just trying to think from your perspective here. So if I was curious what this expansion plug was and how it worked, I wanted to show you. So this is the expansion plug post recall. So how it works is, you can see there's a screw in the top, and it's 2 pieces. So this guy comes apart right down the middle. You can see it's basically just a wedge with a thread. On the inside there's nothing. It's very machined and hollow. Then from here we've got a big screw, And this would be something that can spread and grip the inside of the steer tube. So when you add them all up, I just want to show you as well, this guy from the top cap will screw into the top of that screw. So you can see it's threaded. So it looks more complex than it is, guys, but your big thick bolt drops in the top like that. You thread that in. As you can see, as it tightens down, this guy is being pushed down along the wedge here, so it expands outward. That's going to hold it inside the steer tube of the fork, right? Think of what a star nut does on kind of an aluminum mountain bike steer tube. And then this guy will screw in to this, obviously inside that top cap, and pull the fork bearings together. So this guy's job is to tighten down into the fork so that it doesn't move. And then your top headset cap is to tighten the pressure and pull everything all together. So hopefully that's helpful. I'm sure there's people that have questions, and then I believe there was a QR code. I don't know if that'll work through the phone or not, or through your thing, but install instructions right on the side of it, which is really cool. Now I wanted to as well just show you how much extra room that this spacer takes up, just so you have reference. Once it drops in, it's very, very little, as you can see. Other than you actually do have to position, there's a little arrow here so that your clamp goes to the back, but you can see it's very low stack height, very minimal. So that is pretty simple. Put that on, tighten it down, that'll act as your star nut. So we're going to cut this guy down just a little bit below the top of the stem, probably 1/4 inch. Don't quote me on that. I will do another check just to make sure we're all good, but it's looking pretty solid. So we're going to next mark that and then go down a hair, and leave yourself room if you need to cut it twice. So I have my mark. I just want to go through a couple quick things here on just some etiquette for cutting carbon fiber. So you want to use a 32 TPI blade, that's threads per inch. It's just a finer. I believe you can get 12, 16, 24. The finer, or the higher the number, the finer the cut. So that's what I'm using, it's 32. You'll want to use a square adapter here. I use the Park SG 7.2. It's been reliable and does seat posts and a bunch of stuff. I got it because it actually holds D-shaped items inside it. So that helps to hold the steer tube and to cut everything at the right angle. And then another little trick is Scotch tape. So you want to tape where you're going to cut. So I'll layer this over just so that you don't get any fraying of the carbon fiber. It's just an old trick that I don't know where I picked it up, but something I like to do. So let's tape it up and get started. So I've got it taped, as we can see here, and I've put my line back on that I can see through, and ready to put it into the vise and get this cut. So I'm gonna get this cut, and then I will circle back once we're all done and ready to rock and roll. All right, so we are all cut right through the steer tube here. So I'm gonna go ahead and make a necklace out of this S-Works steer tube and give it to my wife for Christmas or an anniversary coming up, because it's very high quality and means a lot to me, guys. But I'm gonna go ahead and take the tape off and round it out with some high grid sandpaper just to prevent any burrs, and do another test fit, make sure everything's good. I do have a little bit of room in case I do need to cut it down a little bit more, but I've measured it 10 times, so I should be okay, knock on wood. Or knock on wood there, and let's do that. So let's go round that out with some sandpaper and then do another test fit, and then hopefully, with some luck, we are ready to rock and roll. All right, so I am all cut. I do have a gap, obviously, which is good. I've tightened it down, the expansion plug to 5 Newton meters, and as you can see, it's not sitting on top of it, so we can go ahead and install the star nut. I do have, a top cap. I do have a fancy top cap that I'm going to be revealing when the project is done. But if you are a Bruce Willis fan and familiar with Bentley components, then you should be able to get a good idea of what that's going to look like. So let's tighten this guy up and we should be off to the races. All right, so we're all installed. Everything's tightened down and no issues. Everything's actually, there's no play at all. So right now, like I said, it's just, we're cutting things to get a dry fit so we can start kind of putting some other parts on the bike. Obviously, once I get the brakes run and all that other stuff. We're gonna have to take this all apart again, so I'm not too worried about that right now. But no play, it's the right length, and so I can go ahead and start kind of putting together everything else. So that's it for now, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed that. That process took me a couple hours on my end. And hopefully I was able to kind of cut it down into a couple minutes for you, but if not, I apologize, but there are going to be people that are going to be asking questions. So there we go, guys. Any questions, leave them below. Otherwise, like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. And until next week, we'll see you later. Cheers.